Story time.
Hi, welcome to episode 4 of Storytime, and today I'm going to talk about tactics. And tactics are something that are obviously very important in squash. I think that's kind of very well known that squash is a physical form of chess. But it's surprising for me as a coach as I go along, and I've coached a lot of people at different levels, whether it's like professional or a high level university or junior. A lot of them really, I feel like, don't have any game plans at all. So understanding, what you're trying to do on court. Obviously, you're just trying to win the rallies, but I think if you can do a couple of tips that I've outlined today, then you're going to be a lot more successful. So I have 4 tips. So just got my little cheat sheet here, just so I don't forget anything. But first thing I think is to make a note about what your strength, or maybe plural, what your strength is when you play. So you kind of are starting to think a little bit about what you're really good at. Whether you're like a very attacking player, maybe you're very fit and fast, tenacious. Maybe you're just a really good volleyer, very aggressive. Maybe you're just an attritional player and you want really long, hard physical rallies. So I think starting to understand that kind of what your strength is. So just make a little note. What is your strength, right? One thing, one sentence, one word, whatever. I think that is a good starting point. And then, the second part of that is for an individual match, you might be thinking about what is your opponent's weakness. So is there something you can exploit that maybe they have a bit of trouble with if you know your opponent? If you don't know them, obviously that's something you're trying to figure out as you play. But if it is someone you're familiar with, then you're trying to think about, what works against them. What is something that they have trouble with? So that would be my first tip. Second tip I have is about if you're going into a match, it's about keeping it simple. Right, I find a lot of people overthink, overanalyze every little detail, every rally, every mistake, every poor shot selection. So just keep it very simple. So for me personally, sometimes when I play my best squash is about, just hit the ball, keep the ball straighter, right? Something very simple, or, create pressure with my length. Something, just one little message to me that I know if I'm doing that well, then I'm gonna get opportunities to do other things. So just have a very simple message. You don't need to overanalyze all the rallies, all the shots, everything that happens, and it's okay to deviate from it a little bit. And then you just have to snap yourself back into what's going to help you play better, right? So just have a very simple message, which if I've coached you, if you're watching this, you'll know the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So that's a good one to remember that. My third tip is just to be able to play different types of ways. So not just, a lot of people can't just, adapt their game. This is how I play, and if you beat me, you beat me. But I think the really, top players, they're able to adapt their game. Something's not working, maybe just on that day or against that opponent, or they're just having trouble with it, then maybe they can slow it down, they can, speed it up, they can, maybe they open up the court more or try to close it down. So I think just having more variety of game plans that you can execute and play at a high level, I think gives you a lot more options. And obviously your coach is going to love coaching you because they actually can say, okay, let's try this game. Like, that wasn't working, scrap it, and let's try this kind of strategy. And a lot of times it's just one thing. You get in a couple of harder rallies and you can turn the match around, but that's something you have to practice. And I think a lot of people like to practice what they're good at, what feels comfortable, how they feel like they're enjoying playing their squash. But that's not always going to work when you're coming up with somebody who's maybe on, or they do what you were trying to do, but they do it better. So I think having a plan B or C or whatever, being able to adapt your game is really, really important in squash. Last tip I have here is about post-match, like keeping a little journal. So just making a couple of notes about what you learned, what you thought about the match. So just getting, don't have to get, again, too crazy or too over analytical. It's just very simple, like, oh, I realized like my drives were just not tight enough, so I wasn't able to get in front of my opponent. Maybe I was, I felt like I was hanging too far back on the tee. I was going cross court too much from this area of the court. So that's your time where you can get a little bit more deeper into it and, analyze your match. But still, you don't want to have like 7 or 8 things. You still want to keep it very simple. 1, maybe 2 things that you feel like, hey, if I can go back and work on this, I'm going to come back and play, a better match and have a better chance of being successful. And I think that's how you can kind of evolve your tactics and the understanding of strategy and tactics in squash. I think it's so important, but a lot of people, surprising at a very high level, really still don't have any idea of what they're trying to do on court. And I think just, a couple of these little ideas can really help you go a long way with squash. And, it's just by engaging your brain properly about what's helpful and what is too much information, and just knowing what you're good at and where your opponent maybe doesn't have as much strength at, what they're a little bit weaker at, can really help you get better. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Storytime, and you'll join me in a couple more days and for the next episode.